this life has gotten as strange as it can possibly get, but yet we know it's going to get weirder. And so tonight we're going to talk about the global Gestapo. What is it about? What is it for? Why all this social engineering? What is it leading to?
But yeah, this is huge, and I've studied it now intensely. I am a targeted individual, so I've studied it academically. I've studied, the books and the videos, et cetera, that I could find that I think are credible. I've studied it from the point of view of being a target, and then of course I've worked with many others who have experienced targeting, trying to figure out what's going on, because we live in this, kind of totalitarian propaganda system. And media system, which just reinforces the big lie, what the Nazis called worldview warfare, which I think is something like Weltanschauungskrieg. So we have so many big lies. 9/11 was done by Osama bin Laden, big lie. The war on terrorism, which comes, out of that, and many other things, a big lie. Man caused global warming, big lie. This is all worldview warfare meant to, kind of intimidate and coerce the population into submission. 2 and 2 equals 5, right? If it doesn't, if you don't agree, then, we'll put you on the terrorism watch list, and, you'll find yourself a targeted individual. That kind of intimidation, that's explicit terrorism against the domestic population. And of course, it's also implicit terrorism, because if you see that people like me are targeted for speaking out, you might say, oh gosh, I better keep my mouth shut, So yeah. It has a chilling effect on the population, and it's intended to do that. And so the approach that I've taken, Freeman, is to look at this thing really more or less academically and historically, and see what the ingredients are, where they come from, how long these programs have been in effect, and kind of build it from the bottom up based on these ingredients. And what I've come up with, and what I'd like to share today, if you'll allow me, is what are the main functions of Gog's new Gestapo for the ruling elite, for the New World Order, for the deep state, whatever you want to call them. Why do they do this? I now think that it's a multi-trillion-dollar global enterprise. Why should we support these organizations who target, terrorize, torture, and kill American civilians who have done nothing wrong? I mean, this is all extra legal. It's all covert. It's all using very, very high-tech high technologies. So this is what I'd like to get into tonight. Okay, now, UX stands for unconventional warfare. So really what we're dealing with here is unconventional warfare against individuals, against groups that are designated. This is the military industrial corporate complex getting a lockdown, social engineering, as you mentioned the term, to make sure that the society stays in order, and that they can get away with whatever they want to get away with, so that there's not going to be any meaningful pushback, so that we're all going to go along with terrified submission.
Exactly.
Yeah, let me quote Dr. Ronnie Kilda to begin with. She was a brilliant lady, and may she rest in peace. She was killed by this program after 30 years of being targeted. She died in 2015, and she was the chief medical officer of Finland, northern Finland, Lapland, and holds various degrees in medicine. And she actually wrote papers about this kind of thing. In her book, which was published posthumously, called Bright Light on Black Shadows, published in 2015, she says, get this is very key, because she throws so much into this short paragraph. And now she's talking about the Gog's new Gestapo, global organized gangstalking operations, is the most important policy of the United States. With this invisible and silent weapon, now she's going to describe it, they can control people and populations, biological and electronic systems, via space satellites. The elite have plans to get rid of 2/3 of the world's population, as per UN Agenda 21, with electromagnetic warfare, chemical warfare, and psychological warfare. Mind control, MK, is listed as a, quote, non-lethal weapon by the military, and is a weapon of mass destruction along with nuclear bombs. This technology links, this is really important, this technology links the brains of people by implanted microchips to satellites controlled by ground-based supercomputers. Okay, this is all invisible directed energy stuff. I mean, these are wavelengths and frequencies of energy of the electromagnetic spectrum that we can't see, so it's invisible. And they don't need microchips anymore. They can use just the nanotech, which is in our brains by virtue of all the chemtrailing over the years, which have all this tiny nano particles in our brain, which then can act as a receiver. So they can turn our brains into a receiver for signals coming from satellites, which are bounced off the satellites and the cell towers and the mobile platforms from these conscious supercomputers. According to CIA director in 1972, mind control means a world where every thought, emotion, observation, and need is controlled. Well, obviously, this runs completely in the face of the U.S. Constitution, which says that the American people own the nation, and that when the government fails to provide for our life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that it's our responsibility to alter or remove that government. Obviously, the criminal elite, which has taken control of government, has plans to take out the populace, piecemeal, and to use them, in these targeting programs, for non-consensual experimentees. We talked about this last time we did an interview, Freeman. And but this is the big picture. She lays it out in that one sentence. So ultimately, the intelligence agencies, or now the Department of Homeland Security, the DHS, in cooperation with the FBI, the Joint Terrorism Task Forces, at their fusion centers, are identifying people to put on the terrorism watch list and other watch lists. Okay, it's about 3 million of us, because I'm sure I'm on it, because I've documented my targeting. But also known as gang stalking or Gog's new Gestapo, targeting thousands, I would say millions, of loyal Americans using state-of-the-art microwave and radio frequency radiation weapons. The motivation to suppress domestic dissidents, and to assassinate loyal American opposition stems from the perception of dissent against the war as treason. This philosophy is stated very clearly in the Mind War 1980 paper written by Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino. So we're talking, real scum of the earth type people doing scum of the earth type things on our taxpayers' money. Going back to Marshall Thomas's words here, the Department of Defense has a huge stake in futuristic technology that kills by ionizing and non-ionizing radiation, leaving little or no trace. The indiscriminate killing of the Phoenix program continues on American soil. The terms soft kill, slow kill, and silent kill refer to the new way of killing the enemy in conflict short of war and in small wars of the future. This is also, the government now has many, many euphemisms for this, including unconventional warfare, asymmetrical warfare, military operations other than war, civil military operations, low intensity conflict. Put them all together and they're the same thing. They're terrorism against the domestic population. The ability to cull the human herd with silent kill technology allows a few personalities to remake the entire society in their own image, which means no more dissent. Of course, without dissent, you don't have democracy. Emotional manipulation is accomplished using Dr. Michael Persinger's work. You can see that on YouTube, to remotely project emotional states that the brain entrains or locks onto and emulates. One can broadcast rage or fear at an individual target to manipulate and control them. As if these methodologies were not enough to torture and murder people, add to this nightmarish toolbox active gang stalking, which of course is psychological warfare, with gaslighting, all kinds of terms for that, street theater. CIA created cults, we can go on about that, and other cause-oriented groups are used by actively harassing them in public, or harassing targets in public, in neutralization techniques described in counterintelligence operations manuals that are aimed at enemy targets. Why do we need targets? Well, for target practice. Perfecting the latest weapons designed to kill slowly and silently, as well as perfecting the process of controlling the human mind, are no different. Once the weaponry has been perfected on these few thousand, I'd say millions now, the same techniques will be applied en masse to the general population and then to humanity as a whole. Okay, that gets us back to Dr. Ronnie Kilda's statement that, hey, the government has signed on to UN Agenda 21 plans to reduce the human population by 2/3. And the military has signed on, and the Forest Service and the Park Service and virtually all departments of the government are on board with this Agenda 21, which was never discussed by Congress, or the voting population was never informed about it. But we've been subscribing to this since 1992 as a nation, along with about 185 other nations. So we need to wake up as a population and take our country back.
The hardest part is not knowing whether your emotions are your own.
Or thoughts, yes.
Or thoughts. And we've had this massive rise in suicide, especially suicide by doorknob. I wanted to add one more thing, just that I might be getting gang stalked at this very moment, Dr. Karlstrom. I am sitting here feeling overheated. I feel like I'm being microwaved from the inside out. I can't seem to stop yawning, and my eyes are just tearing up. And I have no cause for this, unless maybe it's a weed allergy. But the more we talk, the worse I'm feeling.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm a soldier in this. I'll take it. But man,
it's and of course then our computers are often hacked and interfered with at the same time. So you have this cyber stalking, cyber hacking, microwaving going on. I've been microwaved and assaulted in my home, knocked off my feet, made sick for a month, made weak as a kitten, so I had to crawl to the bathroom for a month. He was going to be the valedictorian at the local high school. He committed suicide, and this unfortunately is the goal of Gog's new Gestapo, is to drive people over the edge incrementally over time. They profile you, they find out your psychology, they find out your friends, they try to isolate you, they deprive you of all human support. They do these psychological operations against you that give you negative messages all the time, that you're worthless, et cetera, et cetera. They ramp it up with the gang stalking, and then they ramp it up some more with the electronic weapons, and then they're always monitoring this. And we can talk about how it's done. I mean, I think it's pretty well known now. They're using military technology like C4ISR, which all the service branches use, which stands for Command, Control, Computers, Communication, Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance. This is how they coordinate these operations. Using the street stalkers, which are criminals using their little iPhones to obey orders and get maybe some money out of this, and then using the special forces operations guys, ex-military, ex-police, who are out there, coordinating things. And then also the individual will often be hooked up through these satellites and supercomputers to the CIA and DIA hive mind teams, who are neuroscientists being paid to, well, map your brain. And we can talk about that too. You are a non-consensual human experimentee. You're being tested. You're testing military